All right, everybody. Today we have a 1996 Cobra Mustang that needs a clutch. It's only got 65,000 original miles, garage kept, very beautiful car. So first step on this car here is to disconnect the battery because it's got an alarm that keeps going off, but we should always disconnect the batteries before we work on cars. And then we got to come in here, we got to take this panel out to get the shifter out and unbolt the shifter, and then once we get that done, then we'll go ahead and push the car up on the rack so we can put it up in the air and start taking it apart. All right, so we're inside the Cobra Mustang. I'm trying to remember how to get this apart. If I'm not mistaken, of course, first thing is you take the shifter knob off. Shifter knob's off. And if I'm not mistaken, this piece here just pops up now. Just be real careful. It's kind of hard for me to do it holding the phone. Let me put the phone down for a second and let me get this piece off and I'll come back. Okay, the shifter boot piece is held in just by these push clips here, here, and then there's two on the other side, there and there. And you have the cigarette lighter you unplug. So then you're down to this point here. Then my phone rang and shut off my video. So now we're down to this point, like I said earlier. There's two 10mm bolts here. You take those off to get the shifter rod off. And then down here, there are 4 bolts down in there to take this piece off. Because this is actually, the shifter here actually goes inside the transmission, and we need to get that apart. So let me go ahead and get this apart and I'll be back. Okay, now I got that plate off, and now there is the top of the shifter that's internal in the transmission. We've got those 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4 there. They're 13, and then that shifter will come up. I have the car in neutral, so I'll get that off, and once I get that off, I'll roll the car back forward and get ready to take the drive shaft out. All right, I cut all 4 bolts out of the shifter, but I can't get it popped up because of the silicone. So probably what I'll have to do is I'll have to go underneath the car with a pry bar and grab it on this edge here and push up to pop the shifter off. So now I have to set the rack and we'll get that going. All right, so now we're underneath the Cobra Mustang. So what I have to do now is I have to take the drive shaft out. So you have these 12-point bolts here to take out. Drive shaft's already been marked which way it goes in. And I went ahead and there's the shifter. Let me get my flashlight out. There's the bottom part of the shifter there. And I've already taken a pry bar and popped up on it, so that's all nice and loose. So I'll get the drive shaft out, then we're gonna have to take the exhaust out. So we got bolt nuts and studs there, nuts and studs up there, the oxygen sensor connectors, this bracket here, and we're gonna go ahead and take it apart at this joint here. To get this out, we'll just let the mufflers hang. They're getting a little bit. So let me start getting some of the, and then we got the oxygen sensors back here we'll have to take off. So let me start getting some of this stuff taken off. I'll probably go ahead and maybe let it back down and get the shifter out of there before I forget. And then we'll put it back up in the air and we'll start taking some of this stuff apart. All right, so now I popped the shifter, got it out of the way. That's what it looks like. It just has silicone that coats it as a gasket. So that's out of the way. So now we'll get back underneath to get the drive shaft and start on the exhaust and stuff like that. All right, I went ahead and I pulled the converter pipe off. You got 2 bolts there at the manifold, 2 bolts here at the manifold. Now on this one here, the oxygen sensor sits right here in the pipe. So I'll go ahead and take that oxygen sensor out so you have access to this. Now we have to take the starter out. There's a bolt here and a bolt up there. These are just gonna hang. I went ahead and drain the fluid out so we don't make a mess. This one takes transmission fluid. I can't remember if this is an early or late model or whatever, but you always want to make sure because one takes gear oil and one takes transmission fluid and you can't mix them up. So I always check and see what's in it. This one obviously had transmission fluid. And it's nice and clean. I went ahead and I drained it in here. So I can put this back in if I want to, after I figure out exactly what type of fluid it takes. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and take the starter off. We're gonna pull this off to get the clutch cable off. I think we're gonna go ahead and drop this mount down so I have access to the bolts to get the transmission out, and I'll have to dig the transmission jack out. So we're boogieing right along. On this car here, you basically have to take the exhaust off first to get the starter out. So if you notice, there is a bolt hole there, a bolt hole there, and a bolt hole there. This one here goes into this hole. Come on, light, stay up there. Goes here, here, and then the other one's hidden up here. So this one is very easy to get to. You just use a deep 13 millimeter and you can get that one right out. This one here, the exhaust is in the way, and the one up top, the exhaust is in the way. So what I do on this one is I have a 3-inch wrench so I can get in here and break this one free, and usually they come right out. Now the one up here is a little bit much tighter, so what I use on that is I use a 1/4 inch wrench that actually is a 3/8 with a 13 millimeter socket. That fits up in there with the exhaust off. Put it back together. That will fit up in here. Let me show you, like that, to get up in there and ratchet that out. So now the starter's out. So we'll start working on getting this bracketry out, which is just a bolt here and a bolt here. I'll go ahead and take these out and remove that. Then I'll come over here and I'll get the wire harness off and out. I probably will pull this out so I don't break it. Still need to get this cover off here, 10 millimeter, to get in here to get to the cable. Okay, I was incorrect. The bolt that holds this cover on is actually a 3/8. It is not a 10 millimeter. So once you get that cover off, you have this cable. There's a clip here that you pull off, and then there is the throw out bearing arm. You put a pry bar in here, push it forward to get this unhooked. So I'll do that next. I can't show you because I'm only one person trying to hold the camera to do it. So I'll go ahead and take a break. So this actually is pretty good. So here's the shifter cable, not the shifter cable, the clutch cable that was in the hole, right? So what happens is when you push on the clutch pedal, you are making this cable shorter, which is pulling this in. So let me get my flashlight and I'll show you. So that is the pressure plate, that is the throw-out bearing. So when you take and step on the pedal, you are pushing this forward and pushing those fingers, which is a big spring, which releases the clutch. And then when you let out on the clutch, this comes back, and then the spring tension traps the flywheel and this plate, the pressure plate, together on the clutch to hold the clutch tight. So that's actually a pretty good picture of what it looks like when everything's moving. All right, I got the trans jack in. I got the back transmission. Well, actually, that's the mount, but the cross member, that's what I'm looking for. The rear transmission cross member out and out of the way. That mount is still good, so it leaves there. So then you have 7 bolts that go around the bell housing on both sides, and then there's 2 bolts that come through this shield here that you got to remove. So this transmission is almost ready to be pulled back and out. All right, after taking all the 7 bolts out on the trans jack tied down, you just gotta come back and kind of wiggle it around this way a little bit to get it to come down. I also forgot, you gotta take this bracket loose. I just take the 1 bolt out and then I just push it out of the way. So there's the pressure plate. 13's gotta take that off, see how burned up the clutch is. It looks like everything in here, you know, it's dirty, but it looks okay. You know, sometimes they wear out the front nub on the transmission, but all that stuff looks okay. So let me get the pressure plate off, we'll look at the clutch. Alrighty, here we go, we got it out. And as you can see, there are the rivets head, and there's supposed to be vent lines all the way through, so it's worn out here. This was the flywheel side, so luckily it looks like that one might have just started touching. And here is the pressure plate side, where the rivets, that's a nice shiny one. The rivets were definitely hitting on this side, so this guy burned up another clutch. See, look how beat the pressure plate is. Usually they get that way anyway, just because of the way it works. And the flywheel in here is up there. We're gonna clean it up and see what it looks like. I haven't got that done. So there's an overview of how to take one of these apart. And Basically goes back together the same way it comes apart. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to leave this one here. I don't really want to show you me putting it back together because it's just the same way it's taking it and putting it together as it is coming apart. But make sure that you put plenty of anti-seize on all these bolts and all the exhaust bolts back here, so everything goes back together nice and smoothly. If you have to chase some threads, chase some threads. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up on the video if you like it.